What's going on, everyone? Hunter and Sherb back with another Misfit Athletics tip. Today we are talking about the overhead walking lunge, specifically with a barbell. Now, this is one of those movements that is equal parts kind of midline control, strength, and flexibility, mobility, those sorts of things. If you've got really poor shoulder mobility, poor T-spine mobility, this movement's going to be pretty challenging for you and should be instead, how do I figure out a way around this? Should maybe be more indicative that you need to work on your mobility, work on that positioning to make the movement easier and safer. So I'm going to have Sherb demonstrate a couple of reps of kind of what we're not looking for, because this is commonly what we see. Athletes getting their torso really pitched far forward, which means their shoulders have to go way back behind their head in order to keep that weight balanced over their center of gravity. So Sherb gets that thing overhead. Again, his torso, kind of key feature here is that torso is pitched forward. You'll also notice he's kind of getting out over his toes with the knee. Good, you can relax, Sherb. And unfortunately, for a lot of athletes, that might be the kind of what's necessary to resort to if you've got some mobility limitations. But again, the problem with that is we're putting the shoulders in a really wonky spot. All of a sudden, our joints, we're not stacking our joints neatly, and that load in a lot of ways is going into our low back and just kind of not the musculature we want to use. So aside from the kind of general tip that warming up and making sure those positions are loose is a good starting point, we want to make sure that you are getting yourselves in a stacked position. So the easiest way to do that is to just get that bar onto your shoulders and do a strict press. From there, as long as that position's solid, you can get yourself into a lunge and just make sure that you are in a nice stacked position. So you can take that one step and just pause, Sherb. So he's in stacked position there, that looks good. And then when he takes that lunge step forward, he is still in the same position that he was when he was strict pressing. Good. Good. Go ahead and take a break. The other component to this is making sure that you're not taking too big of a step. A lot of times athletes will take too big of a step. That'll kind of force them to overextend in their low back, put that bar in a wonky position kind of away from their center of gravity, or the bar is no longer stacked over their hips because their hips are so far back. So one more time, Sherb's going to do another couple steps. We're going to look for that torso to remain upright. That barbell is going to be stacked right over his hips. That way we know that his kind of joints and hips, kind of the big movers, big musculature is supporting that weight rather than, you can relax, rather than holding that thing overhead in a really wonky position. So again, the kind of keys to success with the overhead walking lunge is 1, mobility. Again, if you're trying to always figure out ways to work around your own mobility limitations for movements, that's a short-term kind of procedure that you've got in place there, not necessarily something that's going to help you in the long run. So make sure you're feeling loose. The second thing is, if you don't have a coach or someone there, just set up a camera. Really easy to pay attention to make sure that barbell is stacked right over the shoulder and that shoulder is right over the hip. That ensures that loading is being supported by the big musculature and you're not putting any stress on joints or in your low back that doesn't need to be there. If you like this tip, make sure you subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.